Welcome to class, everyone. So we want to continue with the sewing part of this the tops we are making. Now these are the patterns. You can see the back and then some of the front patterns. Now I'm going to start with the side to show you how to join the pieces with it. Now you see I place here, that's the essence of these lines. You can see the lines now, very obvious. So this is the actual pattern that we cut. So in order not to make mistake, I make sure that I lap them on top of each other. Now I'm doing this for the sake of the beginners, those that don't have so much experience in this thing here. So if you don't have so much experience, this is the best way to go about it. You just pin and then pin. But if you already know how to sew this, you don't have to pin like so. But the essence of doing this is to make sure that the lines are lined, okay, the up and the down. Make sure that the lines are all equal, that they are lined. That's the essence. So you use your pin to secure the patterns so that what you sew up is exactly the same thing as the down part. But if you can sew without this, please go ahead. It's still the same thing. Now the part we are sewing out is mostly the allowance. You see the bone channels, the allowances we kept for the bone channels is the part we are going to sew, or I'm going to sew out. From here now, I'll just put this and then sew. So before you sew, especially on a transparent fabric like this, ensure that you just use pin to secure so that you will not lose. If you lose, your work will be rough. If the losing is too much, so that's why it is not advisable. So just going to this, you see that the lines is the exact place. So I'll remove this again. And then open to join the next pattern. So to add the next pattern, I'm going to select, you can number them. Select the next one here, which is this. So I'll select it, and then you see if I drop this now and then this, you see that this and this is almost the same height. Okay, so I'm going to place it here too to make sure that my allowances, I sew them out both sides. So I'm going to place them. That is the essence of framing your actual pattern. And use a very faint marker, please. Do not use pen. I usually do not encourage using pen, except you are going to cover with embellishment. But if not, please use faint. You can use the crayon pencil or your normal pencil if it is dark. Okay, then if you are good with tailor's chalk, you can use tailor's chalk, but sometimes it's better to use something with very light or thin mouth so that you frame the exact size of the pattern. Sometimes the chalk can be very wide. So I'm going to sew same way I did earlier. Make sure that they are on point and then sew. That is still the same thing I repeated here, the same mark I sew on the mark. Once you use pin to secure, it always ends up like you always sew on the mark. Okay, so this is another one. Then now I'm going to add this to continue. You see, at the end of, after joining everything, so this is what you have. You see all the pieces. Now you can see that the patterns I sewed on the exact mark. So these are now the sewing allowance. You see on both sides the points that I marked. So now what you do is, if you want a double or dual bone channels, you press like this. So that's why we left these allowances the first place. But even if you want single bone channel, you still press this way. So you are going to press down like this to make the work relax. That is what we are going to do next. Just open and then you press down. Same here, open and then you press down, open and then you press down. So that is what we are going to do here. This is one of the methods. So after you finish pressing everything down, so this is it. After pressing, this is what we have. You see, this is what we have after pressing. That's the sewing allowances down. Now if you want to use double bone channels, that's 1 2 1 2 1 2 on both sides, it's just one of the methods is just to use this and then match it down. If you want the bones to be outside, you sew this to create a channel. So this is one of the methods. But if you want a single channel, you can just trim. One of the methods is to trim one of this out and use this to create the channel. Now if you trim and then sew on this, whatever you sew is going to appear here as a stitch and form an outer bone, like you see stitches here. So it's one of the method. Another method too, you see the outer stitch bone channel. Another method is to sew this up here, you sew here and insert the channel. Now if you do this, I'm just explaining the different methods. That's if you leave allowances like this. Now if you do this and push it to one side this way or the other way. Now if you use this method, the disadvantage is that after some time, if the outfit wears out here, this will be wobbling, the bone will be wobbling inside. But that is one of the methods that people use to create an invisible bone channel. That's an inbuilt bone that you will not see the outer stitch outside. They just sew it and then hold it up here. Or I usually do not encourage it. Rather, if you want to build an invisible bone channel, what you do is that you do 2 of this, or you create the channel on the lining so that it is on the lining. For I'll practicalize now. If you want a double channel, you create one, you sew. Please, this is your 1/2 inch, this is 1/4, this is 1/2. If you have industrial sewing machine, it helps you know how to create that space. You use it as your marker. Okay, so you can use this as your marker if you have industrial, but if you don't, for those that don't have, just use your tape to create. The essence is to get a neat straight line. I'm a big fan of clean finishing, so I always make sure that everything I do, I make sure that I do the right thing. Or make sure that your stitch is passing directly on top of the points you mark. I will make sure it is just passing directly on top. So this is So this is what I meant. Okay, now if I sew this and repeat another one here, I am going to have a double bone channel, one here outside. Okay, but if I want a single channel, I'm just going to maintain only this and trim this other one out because I am not using it. Okay, so this is one of the methods. You trim this other one out because it is not useful. This is one of the methods. Another method is, I'm just going to repeat it for all of them so we understand what I'm saying. Another method is to sew these two, but this one is not really, it's also for those that it works for, it's fine. So you just use your 1/2 inch as well, then sew these two together. So that is what I was trying to explain earlier. Sew these two together and then hold it down here, hold it down here. Now when you insert the bone inside, just to hold this here, hold this here. I don't want to do it because it's not the permanent method I want to use. So when you insert the bone, there will be no stitch on the outside like this one, so it's going to be more like invisible. Okay, but this method I usually do not like it because what you use to tack here and here, if it wears out, this bone will be wobbling without direction inside, except after that you still bend and sew, follow the bone channel to sew. And if you do that, you are going to get this method exactly, and this gives a better fit than this one. So I always, since there will be stitch outside at all, I always recommend this method if there will be stitch outside. Then the third method is to sew on both sides. As you sew here, you sew here, but it means you are not going to have two bones, one here on each joint at every point that you join. So it means you are going to have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and then 14 because there are 7 joinings. But if you do this method, you will use a lot of bone, but your structure will be stronger. Okay, so if you don't want to do all that, you can use single at all points. So that is what I'm using here. There is no need of sewing both so that my work will not be rough. I just did it for explanation purpose. So because of that, I'm going to maintain the same thing I did here on all of them. Okay, on all of them. So I have this 1/2 inch. Please do it because this is going to be outside, so that if you want to embellish, your embellishment will be equal, or even if you leave it, you have a straight line. But if you don't do this and you have a rickety line, it makes your work rough at the end of the day. That's why it's very important that you just mark this, and it makes your work faster too because you are sure of everything you are doing. At the end, this is what you get. You can see it. This is the front. You see the bone channel. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So all this will be the front channel. Okay, and then the back, this is the lining, or what I intend to use as the lining, which will be inside, the underneath. So it is still transparent, guys. It's not opaque. It's not opaque.
Hello soul besties, this is Rita's Fashion Academy YouTube channel. If you're enjoying this video, kindly subscribe to the channel, and also you can send a DM to register for our classes.
You see, this is our pieces, center, side, sorry, center, middle, and side. So I'm going to start, just join them. Remember the 2 waistline, you see I notched here, I notched here. So the two waistline must align. So I'll just place this on top of this and then place this here. So you see, I started from the middle. The reason is that I want to be sure that this place actually align. But if you are the type that you can sew directly from the up, it's still not out of place, you can go ahead, but make sure that the waistline aligns. Is very important to make your work, the snatching effect, show very well. You know, this is corset, so you have to make sure that the waistline, if they don't align, you will not like the outcome at the end of the day, because the waistline, it will not snatch properly. No matter the fabric you use, it won't snatch. And if you are using a tape, a band, waist tape band, if it is not, if the waistline does not align and you put the tape, it will not sit properly. It won't sit properly. So that's why it's very important that the waistline align. So this is this side and side. So I'm going to just place it same way, okay, and then make sure that the waist line is in place on both sides. Okay. It's very important to do that, and then sew as well. Remember, when we're doing the front, I pinned everything before I sewed. Okay, so at the end of the day, this is what you have for the back piece, the left and the right. So I'm going to go ahead, just like what I did in front, I'll go ahead now and create the bone channels. Okay, the bone channels. Remember what I did, I used one of the pieces and then the other one. So that is exactly what I am still going to repeat here. So from here, I'll just create a channel, the channel, and then so this is it. Then I'll do the same thing for this side as well. Okay. So now, just like what I did in front, I'm going to cut this out. Okay, so I'll repeat the same thing for the left hand side. Okay, so this is it, the back piece now, the two channels. Now the next